Thank you to everyone. One final round of applause, please. We'd like to introduce our next speaker, one of the more articulate public officials we have out there. Joey Salceda is the governor of Albay, which was judged by the DILG as the best province in local governance, ranking #1 among the 80 provinces. Its disaster management body is a pioneer in Asia and even in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please.
Salamat. Dami nyo. But actually, I was watching already. And kung nanood kayo sa laptop nyo sa bahay nyo, mas ma-amaze kayo sa ganda na nangyayari dito. Anyway, so may topic po binigay sa akin, use of social media during disaster. What is social media? What is typical Latinista? Reductio, eidetic reduction. Social media essentially means the ability to feedback. Dahil nakakausap ka nung kinakausap mo. Yun lang talaga yun. The ability, it's a feedback loop mechanism. That is the heart and soul of social media. Okay, next. So it informs, interacts, inspires, and intervenes. Next. Next. So ano ba yung matututunan nyo kung sa Albay? Unang-una, saan ko o saan namin nagamit yung social media? Unang-una, natuto talaga kami sa zero casualty kasi nasasabihan kami kung saan, sino, at sino makakatulong. Pangalawa, yung uncertainty dahil naiintindihan ng tao habang dumadaan yung bagyo, malapit na ba? Malayo pa? Ano kaya mangyayari sa akin? Uy, huwag kang mag-alala. 20 kph lang yan. 2 mm lang yan per hour. So, imbis na maging anxious sila, so, kasi alam mo, ang meaning po ng social, I'm sorry, hindi pwede ang Tagalog. Because what is the goal of government? What is the goal of governance in disaster? It is to allow development to proceed in the midst of all the uncertainties, in the midst of all the risks. So in short, you have to reduce the uncertainty and you have to reduce the risk as well. And lastly, you can reduce the cost through better targeting. So we will not spend a lot of money in trying to save somebody who is not vulnerable in the first place. And second, as I've said, you have to hold the hands of the people who are at risk or population at risk. And of course, you have to find the unsaved and the unrescued and unhelped. Actually, nilabas ko po ito kasi ito po yung lumabas nung panahon ng Undoy, Pepeng, dahil yung social media po talaga ang nakatulong para mahanap yung mga tao na sa radar screen po namin na dapat tutulong, hindi sila sumusulpot. Hindi sila, while this thing is evolving, our processes and mechanisms were unable to bring out these specificities of individuals or communities that are at risk. And lastly, and this is what is serving Albay most right now, since yung mga bagyo po ayaw na sa akin, lumipat na sa north, that's more northern or more southern. The ITC set is more southern and the TECF is more northern. ITC set means the Intertropical Convergence Zone. It's more southern now in direction, and the tail end of the cold front is now more northern. Its impacts. So dati lahat yan nasa akin. All of them are with me. So now, what do I do? Since I have this free up resources and time for management attention, which is the most critical resource for disaster risk reduction, so we do that to crowdsource. Meaning to say, what is the best way of proceeding, of allowing development to proceed in the midst of all the risks and in the midst of all the climate uncertainties. Okay, next. So ano yung strategy? One, know your hazards and exposures. Alamin mo po, sa Albay naman, alam mo kagad may mayong volcano, di ba? So, yung bagyo, alam naman namin. Anyway, we'll discuss it. Know your audience, and yung TV and radio are only extensions. And know your response menu, class suspension, road closure, preemptive evacuation, forced evacuation, rescue, and sometimes the recovery of bodies. So we even have very specific courses for management of dead and missing persons. So we ask our people to go through the training. And know the capacity and limits of social media as a tool. Kalahati po hindi nare-reach ng social media. Dahil kalahati po, traditional media pa rin po. So hindi mo pwedeng iasa lahat. At saka ang problema po ng social media, hindi katulad ng text, you're forced to open it. Social media, kung minsan, kung makatulog ka, it will not ring you up to look at your... So that's the problem. Alam niyo po yung nangyari sa Fukushima, the bells were ringing, but people were at work. So there was nobody to warn. Those who should be warned. So now we devise a certain way, if the tsunami happens in Albay, the signals, once the thing rings, I think 1 kilometer ahead of Rapu-Rapu, it sends a signal to the radio station. The radio station will be informed that there is such a tsunami signal. Anyway, and next. So yan po ang Albay. I have 1.3 million people. Next. And now, let's start. What's the first one? Know your risk. I think it's pretty much. We are the Vatican of disasters. As I have man-made. I have 3 to 5 major typhoons, but that's, I think, up to 2010. After 2010, we did not have any. In fact, last year, my first typhoon-free year. This year, I don't have a typhoon yet. I'm not saying they go to north, but they do go there. I'm not praying. Kayo kasi, nasar nyo ako dun sa Zamboanga, tuloy, napakabait ko ngayon. I'm telling you, huwag nyo na itanong yun kasi hindi ko sasagutin. It's just as bad as Lucky Beach. So these are the risks that I have, and I would know next. This is our disaster risk ranking, so we would know the intensity of those risks. Next. And know your audience. Every year I have something like a disaster planning. So I get my mayors and my ABC presidents, we talk about, okay, P-Box, come here. Puputok ba yun o hindi? Hindi. Out. Ilang bagyo ba? 3, 5? 3 lang? 0? So we devise this thing on a per-town basis. So we can plan even our budget. Okay, for Tiwi, there will be 13 barangays who will be affected by flooding. Assume, let's say, for a stochastic modeling of 30%, which is the average for the past 30 years, then you get how many people do I have to save, feed, evacuate. So you can do something like that. So at least for that year, I have my target communications, my communications target. Ito yung mga taong importante sa akin. So right at the beginning of the year, New Year, alam na kagad nila na pwede silang mamatay. Next. Ito po yung mga programa namin na pinapatakbo. Hindi ko po isa-isahin dahil alam ko kulang ang oras. Next. So, ang beauty naman po nung ginagawa namin is pagkatapos nun, tinitrain namin yung mga household. Next. So, yan, community-based po ang aming disaster preparedness and response. Why community-based? Napakataas po kasi ng poverty. Pag mataas po ang poverty, dapat ang capacity built-in. Pag sinabing built-in, sa Rapu-Rapu, pag pinasukan nyo ng bagyo, nasa Legazpi ako, kahit anong gawin ko, hindi ako makakapunta doon. So, the capacity to save should be built into the community. And that is, I think, should be the primary dogma in the Philippines. Local capacitation should be there. each community, especially the vulnerable community, kasi the more vulnerable, the poorer eh. The more that you should put in capacity. Kasi pag it's an exogenous transfer of resources like management skills, di ka naman makakapasok, baka pati yung helicopter mo mahulog. Anyway, next. So, ito po yung mga risk mapping namin. As I said, know your risk. Next. Next. Okay, I'll just give you a little of how we try to, how do you call this, reduce it into a formula. Hazard. Hindi ko naman mapaalis si Mayon. Exposure. Alam mo, ang kalaban ko bilang isang governor is a very socio-cultural trait called attachment to place. Dito na ako namatay. Dito pinangit ang lola mo. Hindi dito namatay ang ano. Pati yung kabit ng lolo mo, dito na rin namatay. Paalisin mo ko. So, exposure, in terms of population management, yes, because I have now the lowest population growth rate. My growth rate is way below replacement rate. I have 0.58 population. My crude birth rate is only 1.2, and I really manage it because walang mamamatay kung walang pinapanganak. May veritas ba dito? So hazard, you cannot do anything. Exposure, you can do a little something. So where is your intervention? Capacity. Because even if you have Australia, there was flooding. Almost the entire France and Germany, the entire flood. How many people died in Australia during the great floods? 0. Why? There was hazard, floods, there were people, very populated, is exposure, but no casualty because they have capacity. But bago, next. So these are the hazard maps. Next. I think isa po siguro na dapat gawin pa natin, lalong-lalo na sa mga komunidad, ay matuto po yung ating mga barangay leaders na mag-interpret po ng mga mapa. Ang bilis-bilis kasi pamigay ng mapa ang DNR. Tapos hindi sinasabi kung ano yun. Ang gagaling lang magpa-picture taking. Sabay press release. Oh. Tapos problema ko pag may namamatay, charge sa akin. Next. So this is, I would like to explain to you so you would have a feel of what DRR means, why it's important in the Philippines. Because we're talking about the risk and hazard. China has how many people? 1.6 billion. But look how many children are studying in earthquake zones? 11.3 million people. India has 1.3 billion people, but how many people are studying? 13.7. Philippines has 96.42 million people, but how many are studying in earthquake zones? 15.7? 15.6? So DRR is all about people. I can just imagine what happens to this country if we got an earthquake talaga. Anyway, next. So this is our volcanic hazard maps. Next. Our typhoon. We have all the maps already. Next. Next. But you have to relate it to people. So now this is the red ones, the HAR zone. Next. And then i-overlay mo po sa population, sa Google. Those are real Google. But the white ones, so I guess the decision rules are pretty clear. The black ones, there should be no people. The red ones, You can evacuate, and so therefore you should train. In other words, this is adaptation. Just like siguro hindi mo mapapaalis yung mga nandyan sa Magahan floodway. Hindi mo basta-basta maililipat yan, ma-relocate yan. So kailangan turuan mo na lang mag-evacuate. Tapos yung yellow one, syempre ano lang yan. So in short, you can use technology. Actually ngayon, ginagamit namin to para makita talaga kasi we're using Google talaga to identify which are the houses that are at risk. Pero kailangan pa rin malaman nila, yun ang kinaibahan. Kailangan malaman ng tao. Ang hazard, nagiging risk pag alam ng tao. Pag hindi alam ng tao, hindi siya risk, hazard lang siya. Oo. Next. Kaya yan, kailangan malaman niya. Alam niyo po, yung pinakamalaki naming ginastusan sa Albay ay yung pagmamapa ng lahat ng risk, bawat barangay, bawat purok. Sila mismo po nagdo-drawing kung asan ang bahay nila, kung nasa tabi sila ng punong kahoy, ng mangga, ng nyug. Oh, dito ko nakatira. Wag mo idadaan diyan. Mali ang evacuation route diyan. Nandyan yung inutangan natin. Every day, at least there are 2 barangays in Albay that we train on this specific. Kasi pag hindi mo talaga paulit-ulit gagawin, makakalimutan nila. Babalik sila. Ang backsliding po sa DRR, napakadali. Lalong-lalo na pag hindi ka tinatamaan. Parang pagmamahal. Next. So, ang sabi ko nga, 2 klase ang communication dito. Yung communication na galing sa Pag-asa, sa PBOX, sa MGB, sa NOAA, at yung communication na nanggagaling sa komunidad, dahil tinitrain namin sila na wag nyo na kaming antayin, pag nakita mo na yung tubig, nandun na sa tabi ng ilog nyo, wag mo na antayin, lumayas ka na dyan. Hindi wala akong bigas, kaya may rule kami. Umalis ka lang sa bahay mo, mag-evacuate ka, palista ka, may 5 kilong bigas ka. Bastang sumali ka sa programa namin na kasi nga 15 out of the 19 years, there were only 2 years that somebody died in Albay due to disasters. That is 2006 and 2011. That's 0 casualty. So, ano yung mga warning communications protocol namin? Alam nyo, matutuwa kayo. Number 1, Facebook. Number 2 is an info board from Smart. Plus, I think, email blast. Yung info board po, basically po sa media, at yung email blast, essentially sa mga responders, katulad ng Red Cross, blah, 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 yung mga partners namin, OCD. Tapos yung pindot, sa mga ng pangalan, well, it's Provincial Information Network on Disaster. Ang kulit-kulit kasi ng Smart, gayahin ko daw yung tudlo ng Cebu. So yung tudlo, inadapt sa Albay, kung saan po, imbis ng infoboard lang, may kapasidad po na mag-feedback nga sa amin. Kaya sabi ko kagad sa inyo, ng heart and soul ng social media is the ability to feedback, to talk back to you, to speak to you. And that is the heart and soul of social media for us as practitioners. It's the ability to speak to people where they are, on their own circumstances, on their own terms. So basically itong, nanahimik kayo, yun. Natuto rin po ako mag-English. Pero kinakaya ko sa Ateneo. Kasi talo. Next. Mabuti kung taga-UP ka, sanay. Wala na pong misteryo. There's nothing mystical about rainfall measurements. In fact, we derive our own numbers, but we submit it also to PAG-ASA for info sharing, wherein almost all our local government units have 2 to 3 strategically located rainfall counters para alam nila. Kasi sometimes you say, okay, we had before one for Legazpi. Sa Daraga, hindi naman umulan. Sa Legazpi, ang lumalabas, 37 mm. Ay di nagkakandarapa na kami. Nagsisimula na kami. Yung mga eskwelahan, ipalinis na. Yung teacher, sabihan na umalis doon. Yung susi, iwanan kay ano. Ganon. Paano yung Daraga? Because it is applicable also to Daraga. Now, Daraga is its own. So, mas nalolocalize na po namin. Anyway, so marurunong na po, tinitrain, as I've said, that capacity should be localized as much as possible. So, yung mga experts galing sa PHIVOC, sa MGB, sa lahat po ng kaya namin pagkukunan, dinadala namin nung kinakausap para alam nila kung bakit nila minimeasure at ano yung minimeasure nila. Anyway, next. Ito po kung paano nakakatulong ang radar. Bigyan ko lang example. Noong mga panahon po na wala pa ang ating presidente. Next. Pag ganyan, naku Diyos ko, ang daming pula, parang egg yolk. Ay ko, patay tang bata ka. Kasi we have a 10,000 bags credit line with NFA. Ihanda na. Baluti na yan. Ilan ba yung kailangan natin? Ganito. Di papanda na namin. Pero ngayon po, dahil dito sa Doppler radar, ayan, wala naman palang ulan dala. Puro lang, it is ibig sabihin, non-precipitable cloud formation. So it allows us, so nakatipid-tipid kami ng mga 19 million dahil lang po sa Doppler radar. Pinalagay namin po dun sa Virac para may 2 hours advantage pa kami. Akala naman taga-Virac kanila. Sabi ko, kung gusto nyo matuto, dun nyo ilagay sa Guam. Next. Alam nyo po, sinasanto namin ang PAG-ASA. Kasi, pag nagkamali kami, ang COA, saan ba galing? Bakit mo nagumasos ng 19 million? Kasi sabi po ni Dr. Mike, sino Dr. Mike? Padua? Sino yan? Hindi government official. So kahit maling-mali na ang PAG-ASA, may pag-asa. Hindi ako magkakamali ngayon. may yun may nasa dulo yun Katulad ngayon, ang laki-laki, kararating lang ni Usagi. Hapos, Diyos ko, umabot siya ng 1,000 kilometers, 400 mm ang nabilang, mabuti nasa dagat. At meron po siyang hangin na umabot po ng 240 up to 290. Nagti-320 pa nga. Talagang galit. So, pero sabi na, may nakasunod dun sa tabi. Ito, JTWC. So, ito siguro tatanggapin niya ng COA. Kasi galing po sa US Navy. Pero hindi mo to pwedeng gamitin, papakita mo. Ba't ka gumastos? Kasi, hindi naman dumating yung bagyo. Ba't? Kaso sabi, dadaan daw hindi dumaan. Sa Masbate dumaan. Hindi, charge mo sa Masbate. Anyway, next. Yan po yung mga pinagkukunan natin na kung saan-saan, pero hindi nyo pwedeng gamitin yan sa pag-liquidate. PAG-ASA pa rin. Yung bago po, magiging yung papalit kay Odette, mukhang matindi-tindi tsaka high probability, pero hindi pupunta sa atin, didiretso ng Japan. Kaya nagsisimula na kami maganda, pero dahil po pinag-aralan, wala. So nakapunta ako dito. Sarap sana may dahilan akong hindi Next. So, bakit kung asan sila dun ka, hindi mo pwede pagpilitan ng sarili mo. 56% lang ng mga taga-Albay ang merong Facebook account o pupunta ng internet cafe. Pero siya na po ang pinakadominanteng pinagkukunang impormasyon ng mga ordinaryong masa at tao sa amin. Tapos sumusunod yan, TV, 32%, at 24%. I'm talking about media preferences for disaster information. I'm sorry. And newspaper at broadsheet, buti hindi nag-newspaper to Raptor, kundi nagkandulugi-lugi na to. Sigurado. Marunong din. So 12% lang kumukuha sa news. Kasi daw sa newspaper, ang tama lang yung date. Next. So ano yung mga communication preferences? Facebook, Infoboard, email blast, Pindot. I'm sorry, I really have to use that. Next. Yan po ang aking ano. This, bukas yan sa amin. Alam nyo kasi, kung puro kayo yung mga seryoso, wala naman magpa-follow sa inyo eh. Tsaka hindi kayo Maglagay ka ng biro, lalo na about sex, 1,000 like. Alam mo yung pinakamaraming like ko, yung pag-upload ko kay Willie Bayola, yung naman yan laki kahiyan yun. No, but basically, this is the go-to page in Albay and in Bicol region. I have about 55,000 followers, 5,000 friends. And on a typical day, my posts are like shared by at least 40 to 60 people, depending on the quality. That very infamous quote had 1,700 likes before I deleted it. Unbelievable. Anyway, so ganyan po. Yung aming pong mga advisory, dyan po lumalabas. At next. Tapos po meron po kaming mga subsidiary accounts kung saan po nag-ano. I think I have about 32 na tigpa 5,000 friends na walang ginawa kundi i-share lang yung ano ko. Oo, kasi kung hindi, alisin ko siya. No, we have... Hindi, if you want to be successful, you have to have a small team of specialists. We call it the Albay Social Media Team. They are on my payroll. But the only thing that they cannot do is to disagree with me. But they can disagree with other people. But since I come from less than 1% of the entire lives, it doesn't really mean anything. So, next. So, ito po yung mga resources for warning communications. Next na. Ito po yung aming info board. It's, kahit nandito po, I can put something there. Pwede ko sa sampulan, ano? Wala yung cellphone ko. I can put something there. People are laughing at us. So, people can text back. It's for free when I send it. They pay 50 centavos, and I pay 1 peso when they ask. Usually naman they ask. Tapos, pinaganda po yan ng Pindot kung saan bibigyan po sila ng mobile na good for 6 na Wi-Fi. Kung saan pwede po sila mag-internet. So, meron na po kami sa mga every barangay ng mobile Wi-Fi kung saan they can. Tapos, so, pag nagreklamo sila, meron GPS nagsasabi sa amin, ito galing sa barangay na to. So, alam ko kagad kung sino ibablock. Bakit? Sino ba nagsabi sa Facebook ng add enemies? Di ba add friends? Whoever said that in Facebook, that you have the duty to be sad and feel bad? It's not there. Therefore, anyway, next. I will show you a typical communication. So we start at PAR plus 5. Where do I get the PAR plus 5? What is PAR? Philippine Air Responsibility, 5 days before the heat. So we have daily scanning and surfing of international and domestic sources, K-12, T2K, etc. And then what is the action we want to be triggered? We want our responders to be prepared and make schedule adjustments. And what is the communications we do in order to trigger that? FB post by me. Facebook muna kasi pag email, meron ng pwede ka ng kasuhan eh. Kasi there is like, sa Facebook, malay ko kung hindi mo nabasa, di ba? Pero sa email talaga, there is acknowledgement eh. Anyway, next. Entry, pag pumasok na ng PAR, ang source pag-asa page, post of DOST.pag-asa sa newsfeed, action to be triggered, preparation by community leaders and by vulnerable communities. So what is the communications that we need to send? Advisory 1 by the governor describing the possible hazard, impacts, and general public to be affected. So, ipa-fax namin sa LDRMO, FB post, okay na? I'm okay? Actually, this is the last 2 pages. And then we input it to the info board. Finally, we use the info board. Next, pag may public storm signal warning na, source, pag-asa page, post, and then sino ba ang target namin? Ano yung action na kailangan kong gawin mo? Responders. Sino ba yung gusto kong ma-mobilize? Responders, barangay official, communities should be on high alert to follow my advisories. The communication, advisory 2, to the end power by PDRMC, specific instruction on responses kasi we are very specific kasi nga namapa na namin lahat. Pag hindi ka naman nakatira sa tabi ng ilog, pagkayaman-yaman mo, naka 5th floor ka pa, alam naman ipa-evacuate pa kita. Dahil gusto mo na 5 kilong bigas. Naku, you'll be surprised. Ang mga naunang pumila, mga mayayaman. Anyway, so FB post by Sir Chief, Absimo PDRMC, at PDRMC Albay, Climate Change Academy of Albay, and then constant updating on hazard and events on FB, and then input to info board. Next. I would have given you this, but I was given a few minutes already. This is on a global scale. As many of you will probably know, I sit as the Director for Asia on the Green Climate Fund. We have our Paris, so I have constant updating of the global trends, so we can have separate or whatever. But I'm providing this, it's there. And as this guy knows, I am having bad nightmares because they want to elect me as chairman, and I don't know whether I can do the job. Ba't ko ba in-announce? So, papasalamat po ako na nabigyan po ng pagkakataon na to na makapag-interact tayo para sa pananaw ko na yung ability ng taong bayan, lalong-lalo na sa crowdsourcing, actually tinatanong ko kung ano yung secret of success ng Albay. Unang-una talaga, dahil yung circumstances nila na mas naiintindihan ko dahil sinasabi nila sa akin, mas naiiakma ko yung mga programa namin sa mga tunay ng pangangailangan nila, kung asan sila at kung saan nila gustong pumunta. So, yung ganong klase pong interaction, naging mas makabuluhan lang dahil po sa social media. Kaya malaki po ang pasalamat ko sa social media dahil ito po ang nakapag-sharpening, nakapag-enhance ng aming mga programa, lalong-lalo na sa disaster risk reduction, disaster preparedness, and disaster relief, recovery, and rehabilitation. Sa inyong lahat, magandang hapon.
Thank you.